Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Jacob Hawthorne is about to confront a brutal truth that will upend everything he thought he knew about his family. It begins late at night, under the sharp glow of a flickering streetlight. Jacob, a respected local police officer, stumbles upon a horrifying scene. His sister-in-law, Chelsea Hamilton, lies unconscious in an alley behind the town's only jazz bar, her body twisted unnaturally against the brick wall, blood congealing near her temple. The moment Jacob sees her, something inside him fractures. He rushes to her side, calls an ambulance with trembling fingers, and then immediately dials his wife, Naomi. She answers on the second ring. "It's Chelsea," Jacob says, his voice hoarse. "She's been hurt. I need you at the hospital. Now." By the time Naomi arrives, Chelsea has been stabilized but remains unconscious. The attending physician tells them she may have suffered a concussion and possible internal bleeding. The trauma suggests a violent assault, and Jacob's training kicks in. He asks to see Chelsea's belongings, combs through the evidence, and starts connecting dots. Chelsea's injuries point to a surprise attack from behind, which makes identifying the assailant difficult. But Jacob knows this town. He knows how grudges fester beneath smiles. He begins his investigation by retracing Chelsea's steps, interviewing witnesses, pulling CCTV footage from nearby shops. Patterns start to emerge. One name keeps surfacing: Allison. Allison, Chelsea's ex. The one who disappeared after their breakup and only recently returned. At first, her presence seemed innocent enough. She claimed she was visiting family, maybe considering moving back. But Jacob learns from several sources that Allison had been spotted near Chelsea and her new girlfriend, Madison, more than once in the last week. In fact, twice, Allison was seen sitting alone in her car, parked across the street from the bakery where Chelsea and Madison liked to have breakfast. Another time, she lingered behind a tree at the town square, watching them laugh on a park bench. When questioned, she dismissed it as coincidence. But Jacob isn't convinced. Chelsea and Allison had shared a complicated past. Their relationship had been passionate, volatile, and full of unresolved emotions. When they broke up, Chelsea had tried to frame it as mutual, but Naomi later confided to Jacob that Chelsea had received long, angry voice messages from Allison in the weeks after. When Allison left town, it brought temporary peace. But now she was back, and Chelsea had moved on. Madison, younger and more grounded, had brought a sense of calm into Chelsea's chaotic emotional world. They were only a few months into their relationship, but things had gotten serious fast. That kind of sudden, intense bond may have triggered something in Allison, a blend of jealousy, regret, and rage. Jacob decides to pay Allison a visit. She lives in a modest cottage on the edge of town, inherited from her aunt. She greets him with a nervous smile, wearing oversized flannel and smelling faintly of whiskey. "I heard about Chelsea," she says before Jacob even explains why he's there. "Is she okay?" "She's in the hospital. I need to ask where you were last night." Allison stammers slightly, then claims she was at home watching a movie. "Alone." Jacob presses gently but firmly. "No alibi. No witness. Something feels off." Before leaving, Jacob scans the entryway, eyes catching on a scratch along the floorboards as if something had been dragged. He notes it, logs it mentally. Later that night, he obtains a warrant. The next day, while Allison is away, Jacob returns with backup. They search the home thoroughly. In the back closet, hidden beneath a pile of worn jackets, they find a blunt metal object, a small crowbar with dark stains along its edge. It matches the wound on Chelsea's head. But what seals it is the bracelet. It had been Chelsea's, a gift from Madison. The clasp broken. It lay on the floor under the living room couch, as if dropped during a struggle and hastily kicked out of sight. Jacob holds the bracelet in his hand and knows. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Chelsea wakes. Her speech is slurred, her eyes heavy. Naomi sits by her side, gripping her hand. "You're safe now," Naomi whispers. Chelsea tries to speak, and though she cannot remember everything, she whispers one name: Allison. Jacob receives the message and doesn't hesitate. Allison is arrested within the hour. During interrogation, she maintains her innocence, but her mask cracks when Jacob presents the bracelet. Her eyes betray recognition, panic, and finally, defeat. She confesses, but not without anger. "She left me for that girl. She didn't even look back. You don't understand what that does to someone." Jacob doesn't respond. He just turns off the recorder and leaves the room, heart pounding. Later, he visits Madison. She's been keeping vigil at the hospital, unable to see Chelsea due to visiting limits. Jacob gently updates her on everything. Madison crumples into tears, but doesn't say a word. She just nods. In the days that follow, Chelsea begins to recover. She learns what Jacob did, how close she came to never waking up. Madison stays by her side, and Naomi becomes the fierce protector she once was when Chelsea first came out to her, years ago. But something lingers beneath it all, the knowledge that love can turn dark when left to rot, that obsession wears the skin of devotion until it snaps. Jacob can't forget that. He starts writing a report for the station but leaves the last page blank. Because he knows this isn't over. Not really. Not yet. Someone else saw what happened that night. Someone who hasn't stepped forward. And their silence might be louder than anything Allison ever screamed. The charges against Allison were swift, but the shockwaves hadn't settled. Chelsea remained in the hospital for another week, surrounded by Madison, Naomi, and Jacob as she recovered not just physically, but emotionally. She barely spoke for days, her eyes distant, revisiting the moment she was struck from behind. There were no memories of the blow, only the sound of footsteps behind her and a sharp, sudden fear. Madison became the silent protector, staying with her through sleepless nights, holding her hand through every flash of pain. But in the quiet hours, questions stirred. Chelsea had told Madison that Allison was harmless, incapable of violence. That trust now festered with guilt. Jacob sensed it too. He'd seen it before in other victims. The need to explain away red flags, to preserve the version of someone you once loved. But now that illusion was shattered. Still, Jacob wasn't satisfied. Something in the timeline didn't add up. He returned to the evidence logs, reviewing the night of the attack. The weapon matched, the bracelet was found in Allison's house, and her confession checked every box. But Jacob was a detective. Details mattered. Something nagged at him. The location of the crowbar, hidden but sloppily so. And the fact that Allison, so calculated in her return, had left such obvious clues? It didn't sit right. He decided to dig deeper. While Allison awaited trial, Jacob re-interviewed everyone who saw her near the bakery and park. A local shopkeeper mentioned something odd. Allison wasn't alone one of those times. She was talking to someone. A woman. Short hair. Leather jacket. Mid-30s. That didn't match Madison, and certainly not Chelsea. Jacob pulled security footage again. There she was, the unknown woman walking beside Allison, whispering in her ear. Frame by frame, he isolated the moment the woman handed Allison something. The object was small. Square. A USB stick. Jacob requested a forensic analysis of Allison's laptop, which had been seized during her arrest. The forensics team recovered deleted files, photos, documents, messages from an encrypted chat app. Among them were notes about Chelsea's schedule, Madison's address, and a list titled, Reminders. But most revealing of all was a voice memo. Jacob played it in the privacy of his office. The recording was short. A female voice spoke calmly, carefully. "You know what she did to you, Allison. She replaced you. Like you never existed. Don't let her forget you. Not ever." It wasn't Allison's voice. Jacob took the audio to Chelsea, hoping she might recognize it. At first, she shook her head. Then a pause. Her eyes widened. "I think that's Danielle." Danielle? She was Allison's old roommate. They were close, too close sometimes. "I think Danielle always had a thing for Allison." Jacob searched town records. Danielle Moreno had lived in the area years ago, but moved shortly after Allison left. No forwarding address. No family listed. But then he cross-referenced employment records. Danielle had recently returned, hired at a warehouse under a different last name, Monroe. Jacob paid the warehouse a visit. The manager said Danielle had quit suddenly 2 days after Allison's arrest. Just vanished. No call. No warning. That's when Jacob knew Allison hadn't acted alone. He reopened the investigation quietly. Officially, Allison was still the prime suspect, but he now suspected manipulation. Coercion. Maybe even a setup. Meanwhile, Naomi dealt with her own storm. She struggled to reconcile the sister she knew with the near-death Chelsea had faced. Seeing Chelsea broken reopened something in Naomi, a wound she never acknowledged, the helplessness she felt when Chelsea first came out, the fear of not being able to protect her from the world. That fear had never left. Now, it burned hotter than ever. She joined Jacob in trying to track Danielle. Naomi had a background in archival research, and together they built a digital profile. Danielle had changed her name once before. Maybe she'd do it again. Madison, watching from the sidelines, was overwhelmed. She loved Chelsea, but the trauma had taken its toll. Their relationship was strained, not from a lack of love, but from the pressure of trying to outrun a ghost. Eventually, Chelsea insisted they take a break. Madison moved into a friend's place for a while, promising to return when the healing was real, not forced. Then, a break. Danielle's credit card was used at a motel 2 towns over. Jacob drove out, found the room already abandoned, but in the trash was a shredded a picture of Allison and Chelsea, taped together, then torn again. On the back, scrawled in red ink, "I warned her." Now, with evidence mounting, Jacob presented his findings to the district attorney. Allison's confession, made under duress and emotional manipulation, was put into question. The DA reluctantly agreed to revisit the case. Weeks later, Chelsea took the stand at a pretrial hearing. She described the final days before the attack, Allison's return, Madison's discomfort, and the gut feeling she ignored. Then Jacob testified, presenting the voice memo, Danielle's influence, and the evidence of outside interference. The judge vacated the charges. Allison was released, shaken but silent. Outside the courthouse, she and Chelsea stood face to face. "You let her do this to you," Chelsea said softly. Allison replied, "I didn't know how to stop her." There was no reunion, no forgiveness. Just closure. Naomi took Chelsea home that night, but the house felt different. Emptier. Madison eventually returned, and they rebuilt slowly, this time with honesty, counseling, and long walks without words. Jacob closed the file on Chelsea's case, but he pinned Danielle's photo to a corkboard in his study. She was still out there, watching, maybe, waiting. Or maybe just running from herself. Some wounds don't heal clean. Some truths stay blurry. But Chelsea survived. And that had to be enough. For now. The first snowfall came early that year. A quiet hush settled over the town, covering sidewalks and rooftops like a white shroud. Jacob Hawthorne stood outside the police station, breath fogging the air, staring at a photo of Danielle Moreno still listed as a person of interest, still missing. The case had gone cold, but his instincts hadn't. Somewhere out there, she was watching. Or planning. Or trying to disappear for good. Inside the hospital, Chelsea walked for the first time without assistance. Her body still ached in places she didn't speak about, but she moved forward anyway, determined to reclaim her life inch by inch. Naomi waited by the elevator with coffee, always there, always just far enough away to give space. Madison had returned a few nights ago. They hadn't rushed anything. No kisses. No promises. Just long silences filled with the weight of everything that had happened. And in those silences, the foundation was slowly being rebuilt. Jacob visited Allison 2 days before Christmas. She had left town, but not far. A quiet cottage near the lake. When she opened the door, there was no tension between them, just understanding. "Do you believe me now?" she asked. "I believe you didn't swing the crowbar," Jacob replied. "But I might have if Danielle hadn't gotten there first. That's what haunts me." He nodded. She knew how to push you. That doesn't make you guilty. But it means you still have things to face. Allison accepted that. She wasn't seeking redemption. Just space to breathe. On Christmas Eve, Chelsea finally spoke at a town gathering. It was short, quiet, but powerful. She thanked the hospital staff, the community, her sister, and Madison. And then she paused. We live in a world where sometimes love becomes possession, where pain disguises itself as passion. But I survived. And that matters. So does the truth. Even when it hurts. The applause was soft, respectful. Later that night, Jacob stood outside her door, a sealed envelope in hand. It contained everything he had on Danielle. Every name she'd used, every city she'd visited, every loose end still dangling. He handed it to Chelsea without a word. She might come back someday, he said. But now, you'll be ready. Chelsea held the envelope to her chest. Then I'll be waiting. Not afraid. Just ready. Far away, in a roadside diner off a forgotten highway, Danielle stirred cream into her coffee, her eyes fixed on a television in the corner. The screen flashed images from the town she left behind. Chelsea's speech. Jacob in uniform. Allison stepping into a rehab center. She smiled faintly. Not because she felt triumph, but because she saw what she had failed to destroy. She left the diner before the commercial break. And somewhere deep in the snow, the echo of everything they survived began to quiet. Some scars never fade. But they don't have to define you. Sometimes, surviving is the loudest act of defiance.